Joining me right now is Sam Sorbo here at the Young Women's Leadership Summit. Thank you so much for joining us today. You have many titles.
It's true.
You have many titles. So I'm going to let you give all of your titles. Okay, author,
filmmaker, education freedom advocate.
Okay, wonderful. You were in a breakout session earlier about education. What was your message to these young women?
That home education is really the only path forward. It's the most rewarding and it's the most prosperous way to have a family. And so I think we didn't cover this, but I think this was sort of left unsaid, but it didn't really need to be said, is that if you're a young woman and you purpose to have a family, you need to be making plans to have a family which involves you keeping the children with you instead of outsourcing their schooling. And I don't call it outsourcing their education because our schools are not accomplishing education. So we're just sending our children away from us for other reasons that make no sense to me.
Okay, I'm going to push back a little bit. Is it practical if you're a single income household, you have children, how are you supposed to teach the kids at home, also sustain a job, put food on the table?
Okay, so you said single income, but I'm assuming that you mean single parents, right? Single parent. And I know single parents who have done this. So the ideas that we have about education were unfortunately all engendered from our own schooling. And we were schooled, not educated. So, I mean, it's a deeper conversation that I'm happy to have with you. But the idea that schools accomplish education when they foundationally do the exact opposite of what education is. So school teaches you, don't ask, because this is a barrier to entry. The lesson of having to raise your hand just to ask a question is don't ask, okay? Don't ask. Don't try because failure's bad, and failure comes with ridicule and intimidation, so don't try. Don't think because, teacher, will this be on the exam? Just tell me what I need to memorize so that I can regurgitate for the exam. So don't think. And then the last one is don't read. Because the teacher standing at the front of the class gives you what's in the textbook. That's why you go to school, because the teacher lectures you on what's in the textbook so you don't have to read. And so now we're in an economy, a cultural economy today of don't ask, don't try, don't think, and don't read. It's all trust the experts. That's not education. In fact, I would argue that's the opposite of education. That is dumbing us down.
So if women want to learn more about possibilities with homeschooling, where can they start? It seems overwhelming.
Yes, it does, on purpose, because the educators want job security. So they want you beholden to the schools. And that's where we find ourselves. Oh no, what am I going to do with my children if I can't send them to school? That's slavery. And that's what I stand against. So my whole job, my self-proclaimed job, is to emancipate parents from the shackles of our modern school system. That's what I do. Go to samsorbo.com. I have materials there to engage you to think differently about education. And the way you ought to be thinking about education is, how do I encourage my child to lead a productive, successful life that honors God and that is true to him or herself, right? And how to be a giving, forgiving, loving, and somebody who's able to accept love. That type of person. That's not what the schools do. The schools say, focus on the academics, and then they don't make the academics very good. And so the child ends up hating academics, hating learning, and then he's enslaved. So I train parents on how to home educate, how to think about home education. I don't call it homeschooling because I think school is child abuse, full stop. I mean, what they do to children in schools today very clearly is child abuse. But I would argue that they've been mistreating children for a very long time. And my proof for that is simply that parents still think that they have to send their kids to school. Like, even though they themselves feel inadequate, they feel so inadequate they're going to send their children to the same system that turned out the likes of them.
Well, to wrap things up, can you give us your personal example of teaching your children at home so we can understand how to follow in your path if people want to do that?
Sure. I actually have a book called They're Your Kids, where I talk about exactly the steps that I took. I'm the first to admit I schooled my first two. My son Braden is actually a TP USA influencer guy, and I have a second boy who's 19, and then my youngest is 17, and she's an artist. And she's the one who taught me that I am not the teacher of my children. They are their own teachers. You won't learn anything that you don't first purpose to teach yourself. And so then when you understand that, and so the parent's job is really to empower the child to teach himself. The parent's job is to show the child how to learn so that they can learn anything at any time. And if you talk to most people and ask them, do you do for a living what you went to school for? Most people will say, heck no. And did you learn what you do for a living at school? They go, no, I learned most of what I do outside of school, after school, post school, right? And yet we still insist on sending our children to school. You see what I'm saying? We have to rethink our entire sort of mentality about what we call education. And once we start to do that, we really can be set free. So yeah, I have 3 great examples of doing it. It's not as hard as you think. You think it's hard because that benefits the system, right? And it's so much more rewarding than you ever dared to dream. My relationship with my children is greater, more deeper, more profound, more rewarding than I ever dared imagine being a parent and parenthood would bring me. And I want that for other parents. And it pains me that they so willingly sacrifice that on the altar of what? Convenience or conformity or just their own feelings of ineptitude that were engendered by the school system.
Well, Sam, you've given us a lot to think about. Sam, if people want to learn more about homeschooling, they can go to your website, samsorbo.com. Fantastic.
Yes.
You've given us so much to think about. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for sharing.
Oh, I should say also you can go to sorbostudios.com for anything about the movies.
Perfect.
Thank you
so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks.